Welcome to the second episode inside my Layout to Live series, where we're taking a full website build all the way from the initial design through the launch of the website. In last week's video, we reviewed the design, we spun up an install with InstaWP, and I took you line by line through my child site so you can see how my starter site is built out. In today's episode, we're going to be theming everything out, which means we're going to jump into the customizer and start setting up all of the theme settings as far as colors and typography go. We're going to set up all of our dynamic data through advanced custom fields, which is going to include creating a custom post type, custom fields, and a custom taxonomy. Lastly, we're going to create a front-end submission form with WS Form that's going to allow visitors to submit their deals from the front end of the website and automatically connect into a post on the back end of the website. This is another pretty lengthy episode, but I think you're going to learn a lot of tips and tricks that will help your builds going into the future. Now, before we jump in and start theming this website, here's a quick word from this series sponsor, InstaWP.
This is you. You go to the park to relax, to enjoy your time as a freelancer. Your freedom, right? But what ends up happening is that your client wants a website right away. So what do? You get your laptop out of your bag super fast, try to log in, try to get everything done ASAP. The client keeps texting you for updates, but you simply cannot log in into your WP admin. And you're spiraling, you don't know what to do anymore. But this could be you. You, freelancer B, chilling, enjoying your day as a freelancer in the park, and you receive a message from your client. You open your laptop and start building their website on InstaWP because you know that InstaWP will never fail you. And just like that, you have a website online. Now you can go for a stroll in the park, super relaxed, with a happy client under your belt.
To start theming everything, I think we'll just go ahead and jump into the customizer here and start there. Now, the first thing I want to check here is the site identity. Right now it just says 2024 starter. We'll call this Black Friday Deals, the admin bar, just for now. And we'll go ahead and get rid of that tagline. Now this is going to affect some of the defaults for page titles and things like that, but I'm not going to actually be showing a header on this, so I'm not too concerned with what it says at this point, and I don't really need to add a logo. Out of there, we'll go into layout. The main thing I'm concerned with here is this container width. You can see by default in my child theme, I have this set to 1280 pixels. But if we jump over here into our Figma file, and I'm just going to grab a rectangle here so we can measure this out, and we see if we get these right up against those grid lines there, that our width is actually 1440 for this design. So we need to change that here inside the customizer. Instead of 1280, we'll go with 1440. That's actually a pretty wide width. I don't typically use a width that wide, but for this layout, especially with something that has a lot of boxes, that's kind of the card design, you can often get away with a much wider layout. So the rest of these things are fine, just the way they're defaulted inside the starter site. In fact, I don't think we need to worry about any of these things. I'm going to be removing this header and the navigation and everything through an element here in a few. We'll do that separately, so we'll just get back out of this layout tab. I think where we'll spend the bulk of the time doing some customizations now is really inside these global colors. I'll go ahead and scroll down here so you can see all the global colors set up inside my style guide, and we'll take a look at what we have here. We have two primary colors, a primary and a primary alt. We have two contrast colors, contrast and contrast alt, and then a range of surface colors going from 0 all the way to 100. Now, if we jump back in here inside of our Figma file, go ahead and delete that. I'm going to grab this frame and we're going to look over here in the selection colors on the side so we can just get an idea of what kind of colors we need for this design. We can see here we have white and then a range of grays and blacks, and then our bright yellow tab brand color. Now, because this palette is much more simplified, we can actually simplify things here in the customizer. We just need to decide how we want to map it out. I think for the primary color, we'll go ahead and use our tab brand color, which I know that hex code by heart, it's FEC200. We're going to have to get an alternate color here. I think that might be useful for our buttons, but we don't actually have that in the Figma file, so we'll tackle that in a second. Now, we don't really need a secondary color here or this accent color, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this color. Now, this does become a little bit tricky because I have assigned things inside of these accordions to those contrast colors, so we're going to have to go ahead and fix that, but we can tackle that here in a second. Now we just have our surface colors. Now, by default, this is set up to be a light theme, where 0 here is the lightest color, which is a pure white in this case, and the darkest color here, which is a pure black, is set to 100. But this is actually a dark themed website. Now I could just go ahead and set these colors to the appropriate hex values and leave them just as they are, but then I have to go inside my starter site and start reversing the way all these colors are assigned. What I prefer to do in these cases is actually reverse this order of colors here inside my starter theme. So instead of 0 being the lightest color, I'll make 0 the darkest color, and I'll work my way the other way through this kind of gradient of gray colors here. So let's go ahead and pop open Figma here. In fact, I might go ahead and just kind of dock this to the right, and we'll go ahead and dock our customizer over here to the left so we can see these colors at the same time we're looking over here at the customizer. So as far as the darkest color, now the darkest one I have inside Figma here is 33, 33, 33, but I'm actually going to want a darker color than that just in case I need to add some shadows or want to show some kind of contrast. I don't like for the primary color I'm going to use to be the absolute darkest or lightest. I always want to have one shade below or above that. Now, because I don't have all these colors specced out here inside of Figma, I'm actually just going to go steal these from the admin bar's website where we already have all these colors set. I'll go in here to the customizer and we'll just scroll down here on the right hand side until we find this palette. We can see the darkest color here is actually 0F, 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 and then we get to that 18, 18, 18, which we can see here in our Figma file. So I think what we'll do is for this darkest color here, which was our lightest color, we're going to go ahead and change this to the darkest color in the tab palette, which is 0F, 0F, 0F. For the -10, we can change this to 18, 18, 18. For the 20, we can change this to 27, 27, 27. I'm just pulling these from over here inside the Figma file. After that, for 30, we'll do 33, 33, 33. And then we see we kind of skip around here. We don't have a complete gradient inside of Figma, so let's work our way backwards, I think, now. So the last one we set here was this 30, and then we still have 70, 80, 90, and 100. And I don't think we're going to use all these in the designs, but let's go ahead and now work our way backwards. So now we know that the surface 100 is actually going to be our brightest color, so I'm going to go ahead and make that a pure white. Now, next to that, we need something that's just slightly grayer. I'm going to go back in here into our palette, and I think I might grab this 50 color here, which is just E7s repeated. So we'll go E7, 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 and we have two more colors in between here. I know we have this CF, 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 so let's see where that kind of fits. This would actually fit right next to the E7s we just did. So we'll go ahead into this one, and we'll do CF, CF, CF. And we need to grab one more color here, even though I don't think we're going to use it. I'm going to go ahead and grab this B7, 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 and we'll go here into the 70 and do B7, B7, B7. You can see if you look at this palette, we kind of skipped a few colors here in the middle. In general, I find that we don't need the colors in the middle of one of these gradients as much as we do the real dark ones and the real light ones. No matter if you're doing a light theme or dark theme, this is kind of true. Those middle colors are a little bit muddy and not that useful. So let's go ahead and go back in here, and we can see all of this is automatically getting updated inside of our style guide, and everything looks dark themed now because we were able to take this and reverse this kind of gradient of colors. Doing it this way means we don't have to retheme everything in the website, which is a really handy way to set this all up. You just have to remember that now your darkest color is a 0 and your lightest color is a 100 if that matters to you. Now there are a few things here, like our buttons look kind of silly. That blue color that we got rid of is still being referenced inside this file. So there are a few things we're gonna have to tackle here. Before we do that, we didn't set this primary alt here. So let's go ahead and take care of that. For that, I like going to this Tailwind Shades website. Let's get rid of the inspector here. And we'll put in our brand color, which was FEC 200, and we'll go ahead and hit generate here. Now what I'm thinking is, since these buttons have a bright yellow background and dark text, when you hover on them, I think we'll just make the background a bit brighter or lighter and keep the text dark. So let's go ahead and just find a color here. I think this one right next to our brand color would work perfect. So I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that to my clipboard and paste it in here. Now, a lot of times you're working with a set of brand colors, so you wouldn't be willy-nilly going and grabbing things, but in this case, I don't really have an alternate color to this primary brand color, and I think this will work fine. Using this Tailwind Shades website just does a really good job of keeping the colors in the same family, and that way we know this color is gonna match the other color we have. So just a little bit of a hack there. Now, of course, we got rid of these contrast colors. They're still showing here because we'll have to actually go into our style guide and delete them if we need to. But for now, I'm just going to ignore that those colors are here. Let's go ahead and go through all these drop downs here just to make sure everything's set correctly. Obviously, our background now is using this surface 10, which is perfect. Our text here is using a surface 80. We might decide we want this surface 90, but I think for now we'll just go ahead and stick with that 80. And our link color is by default using that primary color and the alt color as the hover color. So I think all of that is great. Now, we're not going to be using the top bar, the header, the primary navigation, the off-canvas panel. This is all due to the fact that we're just doing a one-page website that doesn't really have a header. Obviously, if you're building an entire website, you're going to want to go ahead and go through all of those colors. Inside the content, we can pop that open, and all of this seems like it's going to be just fine. We're not going to reassign all these heading colors here. This surface 90, which is a little bit lighter than our text, will work perfectly. Often on a light themed website, I'll make the heading slightly darker than the actual body copy just to give it a little bit more contrast. And I think that's going to work just the same here inside of our dark mode. Now, forms, we're actually going to control this with WS forms, so we don't have to mess with that. Sidebars we're not using, footers we're not using, so I think we're good on all the colors as far as theming this out. Again, because all of this was kind of preset inside of our starter site, everything just flowed through naturally, and we didn't have to do a lot of customizations to it. So for now, I think our colors are good, and we'll go ahead and go back into our customizer here and tackle typography next. Now you can see all I have set up inside of the starter site is just assigning the HTML element and the all headings here. That's about all I do here inside the customizer, and right now it's just set to system default because we haven't uploaded a font yet. You can control, of course, all the heading levels inside of here, but I've tended to use the child theme setup that I showed you in the last video, where I can actually assign the element and a class that matches it all in one go. So that way I can use a looks like H1 or looks like H2 class. However, we do need to add fonts here, and thankfully we can do that inside GeneratePress, where we can upload custom fonts now. To do that, we actually need to leave the customizer here because I don't believe I have that setting enabled. So we'll go back into our dashboard. Under Appearance, we'll go to GeneratePress, and if we scroll down here, we have the font library. We'll go ahead and activate that, and we can open up our font library. Now here we can install Google Fonts or upload custom fonts. I think we're just going to go ahead and upload custom fonts even though we're going to be using a Google font. I just want to show you through that process, and that way we can make sure we're just uploading what we need. So we'll go to here to fonts.google.com, and we're only using the font outfit inside of this install. So I'll go ahead and search for it. We'll click on it, we'll click Get Font, and we'll click Download All. This will go ahead and download it for us, and now we can upload this right into our install. Now, before we decide on which weights we need to install, let's go ahead and take a look at our Figma file again. We can see obviously here these big headlines are using the black version. Again here, this is using black. This one here is using black. These pre-headlines, if I can get access to that, that's using medium, and the text here is using medium as well. If I'm honest, I think I'd rather this regular text be just using regular, and maybe we could still use medium here. Now, the less fonts we use, the lighter weight the website is, so I prefer to use less fonts than more. So maybe we are better off just using two versions here. In fact, let's see what this looks like changing this from the medium back to regular. I don't think it makes a huge difference in the design. In fact, looking at these here, I can't tell that this one is the regular and this is the medium. So I think we'll just go with regular and black. So back here into our install, I'm going to click Upload Custom Fonts. And here is the fonts I downloaded from Google. So we know we need to get this black version, and we also need to get regular here. So I'm going to select both of those and then just drag them in. And just like that, they're installed. We can go back into our font library. We see outfit here and that it has two variants, both the black 900 and regular. You do have some advanced options here if you want to change the alias of this or fallback fonts or all that. But for now, I think this is perfect. So with those fonts installed, we'll go back into the customizer, into typography, and we can see outfit has been added to our font manager here. Now, we could add a font from here, but since I didn't have that module enabled, it wouldn't have quite worked in the new system. Now that that's enabled, you could actually just add fonts right here from the customizer. Let's go ahead and just assign these fonts to our HTML element. I'm just going to assign outfit, and we'll make sure it's assigned to this 400, even though I think my child theme takes care of that. And for the all headings here, I'm going to go ahead and assign that to outfit as well. And we'll change this to 900 since we're using that black version of outfit. We'll have to go ahead and publish this now and jump into our child theme to make a few tweaks to the way this typography is going to work. As you can see right now, it's still showing the system UI font, even though we assigned it here. My child theme is actually overriding what's being set here. We'll hop out of the customizer, back into our file editor here where we're in our style sheet style.css file. And I'm going to scroll down here until we can find our typography section, which is right here. If you remember in the last video, this is really my control panel for all these fonts here. So there are things we can tackle down here, but I think for the most part, we'll be able to stay up here in this variables area. So instead of system UI as that headline font, I'm just going to go ahead and change this to outfit, which is the font name we uploaded. And same for our body font here. Now, because we're using the same body font and headline font, we really don't need two different lines for this, but I've already kind of built up my starter site so I can use a different headline font and a different body font. So I'm just going to leave this be for now, and we'll just continue to use this system, even though it is a little bit overkill for this. Now, just to double check here, it does look like our font weight is set to 400, which is great. And here inside of our default headings, we actually have this font weight defaulted to 700. I could make a variable for this and add it into this little control panel here, but since it's just one line to change, I'm just gonna go ahead and change that to a font weight of 900. And I think that's all we're gonna need to change for now inside the typography system. So let's go ahead and visit the front end of the site again. And now we can see this is actually set the font to outfit here for our headlines, as well as all of our body copy. Now it's at this point that we'd want to go through and set the font sizes for all of our different heading levels, our body copy, and all of that. However, in this case, we are just building a one-page website. Most of it is going to use loops, so we only have to really set it up one time. And we can take advantage of the global styles inside Generate Blocks to kind of control this globally. I say all that to say, I don't think there's a point in going through to set all of these different font sizes inside of our child theme in this use case. Now, luckily, thanks to the child theme and all the defaults I have in here, all these font sizes look generally pretty good for our purposes. So even if we did end up using something directly from here, like we just bring in an H1 or an H2, these are pretty appropriately sized as it goes. And we're not dealing with a client or a Figma file where we have to be absolutely pixel perfect. So I think in this case, we're just gonna leave this typography as it is. It's close enough, and we can override anything we need with classes inside of Generate Blocks once we get to it. So with the typography done, let's jump back into the customizer again and just make sure there's nothing else we need to change in here. The general settings are all fine based on our child theme. We're not going to be using menus or widgets. Our homepage settings, right now we're set to the static page of the style guide. We'll switch that over to the actual page we build once we get to that. Now we do probably want to make some tweaks in WS Form. So inside of WS Form in the customizer, whenever you click on that, it pulls open a preview of what a form might look like, and we can go ahead and make some adjustments there, which we can see we need to do. Now to do this, I think I am going to go ahead and go back to the admin bar's website and pop open these colors again, just so we have a quick reference. We'll go back into the inspector and scroll down here until we find all those hex values for our colors again. I'll go ahead and dock this over on the right and dock this one on the left so we can just see both at the same time. Like I said, we're going to be referencing these colors over here from the admin bar's website just so we can set up something for the form here. Now, obviously, this is set up to use a light mode type website, so we need to reverse some of these colors. So here inside the default for the labels, field values, and help text, we need to go with something light. We'll go ahead and go with our text color here, which I believe here was just E7, E7, E7. So I'm just going to grab that and we'll paste it in here. That'll give us some light labels. The inverted fields, now we need to go with a dark color. So I'm going to grab this 18, 18, 18. For light, this is for disabled fields, so we can go with something just a little bit darker. For lighter, we can go with something, honestly, I don't think this is going to matter a whole lot. I don't think we're going to run into all of this. This is for field borders and buttons. And then lightest here, we might go with something maybe just a hair darker, even though I don't think it's really going to matter. Obviously, all these colors are kind of named inverted to what we need since we're going with the dark mode site, but we can always tweak these once we're building out a form and seeing what we're really dealing with. Now for our primary, I do know we want to go with our brand color here, so I'll just go ahead and paste in that FEC 200. The secondary, like a reset button, I think we can probably get away with just a light gray color here. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I didn't mock up any forms or anything, and all of this should get us by. The rest of these are kind of contextual, so we can leave those the same. We'll go in here into typography. I actually want to set this default font size to 18 pixels, which is going to be the body size on this website, so we'll leave that. The font large size, we'll go ahead and bump that up to 22 since we bumped up that regular font size, and we'll bump up the small from 12 to 14. That might actually come into play if we have a little opt-in box or something like that. Line height at 1.4 is fine, and it's just going to inherit the fonts from our site, which is perfect. Now, as far as borders and box shadows and transitions, I think we'll just leave all of these to the default, but I will go in here and go to the advanced tab where I want to change this grid gutter and the spacing variables. I like to go with 24 for this grid gutter. For the spacing, we'll go with 12, and spacing small, we're going to go with 4. Now, these are just some defaults that I've kind of memorized using WS Form for a while, but I think this will work perfectly for our use case. We'll go ahead and publish those changes, and I think we're done with everything here inside the customizer. So we'll go ahead and jump out here. And the next thing I want to tackle is getting rid of this header and the menu. All of this can be controlled in our default page layout element. So we'll jump back in here into the elements. If you remember in the last video, we went through all of these. What we're going to do here is just go to this default page layout and make some tweaks here. So under disable elements, we're going to go ahead and disable the header, the mobile header, the top bar, primary navigation, secondary navigation. Now the featured image and content title were already disabled, and we'll go ahead and disable the footer as well. We don't need any of these things for this one-page website. We're going to design it all inside of the editor. So we'll go ahead and disable them all here, which will disable them site-wide since we have this element set to our entire site. We'll go ahead and hit update here, and we'll just jump back on the front end to make sure all of that is gone. So perfect, the header's gone. The footer here is still assigned, so we do need to get rid of that as well. We'll go in here to footer and edit. And I have a few different footer layouts set in here, but really what we need to do is just go to this location of entire site and get rid of that. So that way it's not going to be injected into the front end of the website, which we can just verify by going and visiting the front end again. Now, while we are theming everything out, I think I want to go ahead and take care of our buttons here. We're not going to need all the buttons that are inside the style guide, but we can go ahead and take care of the ones we do need. I think the sections and containers and all of that is good for now. So let's just go ahead and take care of our colors. We can get rid of these two that we don't need and kind of focus on our buttons here. So I'll go into edit this page. We'll scroll down and I'll just go ahead and delete these two contrast colors since we know we're not using those. I don't think we'll really need to reference this style guide, but we'll go ahead and take care of it while we're here. So let's look at our Figma file here and see what kind of buttons we need. We can see this primary button that's used in most of these cards here has the yellow background with the black text. So we'll need to set that up. And we also have a secondary type of button here, which has kind of a light gray background with black text. So we'll need to set that up. And I think that's it as far as buttons. So we just really need two types, our primary and our alternate. So we can go ahead and get rid of this primary ghost, the primary outline, and our contrast here. This was assigned to our contrast color, but since we got rid of that, it looks kind of grayed out now. We'll go ahead and delete that. And we can delete this whole section here that has kind of the inverted colors. Everything here is going to be on a dark background, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that. So really, we just need to focus on this primary and primary alt. Now, as far as primary, the colors already look great. But if we go back into our Figma file here, we'll see these are set to be in all caps. So let's go ahead and take care of that. We'll click on to our primary button here. We'll make sure we're editing the primary button class. And under typography, we'll change the text transform to uppercase. Now, anytime I do uppercase text like this, I like to add a little bit of letter spacing. So let's go with 0.02 em. Maybe we go with 0.04 just to space those out a little bit more. I think the spacing around the button looks fine. We could go in here and make it pixel perfect to the Figma file, but I don't think it's really necessary. We'll go ahead and reference this Figma file again though for these lighter buttons, these alternate buttons. We see they have a light gray background here with dark text. So we'll go ahead and go into these buttons. We'll make sure we're editing this button primary alt class. And we'll make these same changes to our text transform. Those are going to be uppercase as well. The letter spacing, we did 0.04 em, so now those match. And we need to adjust the colors. So as far as the text color, we're just going to go with our dark surface 10 color for the text. And we'll go down here to the backgrounds and we'll change this background color to a lighter gray color, maybe the surface 80. I think the 80 works great. Now, by default, I do have a border on all of these buttons. Oftentimes, I'll be using a solid button next to a border with an outline. And if they don't both have an outline, even if the outline's the same color as the background, they can look like they're different sizes. So we need to go ahead and adjust this border color to match the background color here. So we'll scroll till we find our borders, and we'll change it from this yellow color to the surface 80 just to match that background color. So now that looks pretty good at our default state, but on hover, we're gonna have to decide what we wanna do. I don't think I want this to go to yellow on hover, and we need to adjust this border color as well. Again, we'll click on the button, go into our edit style, and here we're actually gonna change this to hover and focus. So for the background color, instead of the 80, I think we'll lighten these up as well and maybe go with 90. So now when we hover over it, it gets a bit of a lighter colored background. And I want to make sure to make that border match as well. So we'll just change this border color to the surface 90 as well. So now those match perfectly. So with that, we have both our primary button and our primary alt button ready to go and all styled. And I think that's all we need to do to go through and theme out this website. Now, of course, we'll make changes as we're building things out, but I think we've laid a foundation that's going to allow us to build pretty rapidly. Next up on our agenda is setting up our custom post type and jumping into ACF. Now we could technically just use the default post inside WordPress, but if this were a bigger or more permanent website, I would definitely opt to go for a custom post type for this. And because I think it's going to make for a better demonstration, I'd love to walk you through that process of setting up a custom post type, custom fields, and a custom taxonomy. To do that, we'll go over ACF here and click on post types and click add new. Now for the plural label, we'll go with deals, deal for the singular label, and the post type key of deal is just fine. Now we will have to add a custom taxonomy to this, but we're going to go ahead and worry about that later once we set up that taxonomy, since it won't be available from this list at this point. Before we go further, I do want to mention something here inside Figma. So we can see this page is going to have a list of all these deals. We're going to query this in through the query loop block, but when people click on this button, I don't want them to actually go to a post on our website. I want to take them over to an external website to check out that deal. So there's really no point in having an actual post for each one of these posts, if you know what I mean. We don't need a single post template or people to go to an actual page for each one of these deals. Now, I think the right way to do this is inside the advanced configuration, inside of URLs, and then turn publicly queryable off. However, if we turn that off, generate blocks query loop block will not recognize this post type inside that query loop block. So we can't quite do that. Now, one way around that is to just go here inside this public switch and go ahead and turn that off. That will keep WordPress from generating the URL on the front end. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off. Back here under the advanced configuration, we're going to go back to our general tab. We don't really need the editor or the featured image. We're going to use custom fields for all that kind of text input we need, but we will go ahead and keep the title and custom fields. Under the visibility tab, we'll go ahead and give this an icon just so we can recognize it. Maybe I just search for tag here and we'll use this tag here as it's kind of like a deal, so the tag makes sense. Under URLs, we'll go ahead and leave that publicly queryable on. We'll make sure the archive is off. We don't really need that. And as far as the permalink rewrite, we can change this to no permalink, which will prevent URL rewriting. So this is going to be perfect since we're not actually creating a post page for each one of these posts. That's all the configuration we need to do to set up a post type. So we'll go ahead and hit save changes. And now we can see our deals post type is showing up over here in the navigation. Next, we need to go ahead and create some custom fields to go with all of these deals post types. If we went in here and added a new deal, you can see all we can do at this point, since we got rid of the editor and the featured image, all we can do is give a title, and we actually need a lot more information than that. So I'm going to go in here into our ACF, and we'll go to field groups, and we're going to click add new. We'll just call this deals so it just matches our post type, and we can start adding all the fields we need. But first, we need to figure out exactly what fields we need. So back to Figma for that. So we don't have to flip back and forth between the two different screens. I'm just going to go ahead and open up a text editor here so we can jot down the different fields we need. Here above the company name, we kind of have a subheadline, even though it goes above it. I'm going to go ahead and call that a subheading. The company name, we'll just use the title of the post for that. So that's kind of already built in. We need a description. And we'll go ahead and maybe make a note here. We want this to be long text, and the subheading can just be text. These are the different field types, which will make more sense as we start building out these custom fields. The button here is going to say claim, company name, deal. So essentially we're going to inject the company's name into this button. We don't need to create any kind of custom field for that since we can just reference the title of the post. However, we do need the URL that we're going to send them to. So we'll say deal URL, and this will be a URL field. Now, lastly, this listing has an image. These ones have an image that goes across here, and these listings down here have an image as well. Now, we can go ahead and just use the same field for all of these. As we input the images, we'll have to make sure we're using the appropriate sized image, but I'm controlling that a little bit separately from the system. If you wanted to, you could create a different image field for each one of these different sizes, but I think it's kind of overkill in this use case. So I'm just going to say image here, and this will be an image field. So now that we know the fields we need to create, I'm just going to set this over on another monitor here so I can reference it, and we'll go back into our install so we can start creating these different fields. Like I said, we're going to use the title field for the company name. So the first thing we need here is our text field for the subheading. So I'm going to call this subheading. And then when you tab through, it goes ahead and gives you a field name of subheading. Now on big sites, I like to be really careful about how I'm naming these fields since I'm gonna have to reference this dynamic data later. And I could, in theory, have another post type that has a subheading. So I'm just gonna change this to deal underscore subheading. So we know that this subheading has to do with our deal field group, if that makes sense. We'll go ahead and add another field here. This one is going to be a text area or the long text. This is going to be for the description. And again, I'm going to change this from description to deal underscore description just so we can be more explicit. We'll add another field here. This one is going to be URL. We'll change this field label to URL. Again, deal underscore URL so we're explicit. And lastly, we need our image. So we'll go ahead and go in here and we'll choose an image type. We'll call this image, and again, deal underscore image. Now, those are the only 4 custom fields we need for this post type. So let's scroll down here to our location rules, and we're going to want to make sure this post type is equal to deal. So now we've assigned all these fields to our deal. We can go ahead and hit save changes. We'll go back into our deals, add a new deal, and we'll make sure that all these fields are showing up. Our company name will go here into the title field. We can have our subheading, our description, our URL, and our image. Now, the last thing I want to do with ACF is set up a custom taxonomy. So let's talk about why I might want to do that. If I zoom out here, you can see kind of my notes on the side of the Figma file, and there's different levels to the listings here on side the Black Friday deals page. So there's 1 platinum listing that will go at the top. There's 4 gold listings. We have silver listings, I believe 12 of them, bronze listings, and then the standard listings. So the way I want to control this is just by setting up a taxonomy to differentiate what type of listing it is. This will give us a checkbox in the UI to say whether it's a gold or silver or bronze listing. So we'll go back in here into our install, and under ACF, we'll go into taxonomies. We'll go ahead and click create new, and we need to give this a label. Naming things is hard, but let's go ahead and just call this level for now. So levels for plural, level for singular, and level for the taxonomy key is going to be just fine. Now here we can go ahead and assign this to our deal post type. So this taxonomy only shows up there. Again, we don't need this to be public. I don't want to create any kind of archive page or anything for these different deal levels. This is really just for us to organize information. Now, I do want to give us a checkbox UI, so I'm going to turn the hierarchy on. This will give us the category type taxonomy that you're used to instead of the tag type. It's just easier to check a box. Again, we'll go into the URLs and we'll turn the rewrite to no permalink. With that all done, we'll go ahead and hit save changes. And now if we go under our deals, we can see our levels here. Now, if we click into those, obviously we don't have any yet. So we'll go ahead and set each one of these up so they're ready to go. First, we have platinum. We'll add gold, silver, bronze, and standard. Again, if we just go into deals and add a new deal, we can see now here on the side, we have this levels of bronze, gold, platinum, silver, and standard. So when we create a new deal, we'll be able to just check which box we want. And when we set up the query loops on the front end, we'll make sure they're just querying the right type of deal. If you're new to ACF and feeling a little bit lost, don't worry. I think a lot of this is going to make more sense once we're building out the front end of the website and actually querying all these posts. But as for now, I think we're done setting up ACF and we can turn our attention to creating the front end submission form with WS Form. Essentially what I want to do is have a form on the page where people can submit their listings. Now they could just email these listings to me and I would have to go in and manually add them, but it's going to be much easier if they can just fill out a form that automatically populates one of these posts for me. Thankfully, WS Form actually makes this really easy. Now, inside of our plugins here, you can see that we have WS Form Pro installed, but we actually need to get the Post Management add-on. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that from my account and get it installed, and we can pick up from there. So all I did after pausing the video was install the WS Form Pro Post Management add-on and added my license to it. This is gonna give us the ability to create a front-end submission form. So we'll go in here into WS Form and click Add New. Now, because we installed the Post Management add-on, we actually have a tab up here for some of their templates that come with the Post Management, and it's already recognizing our deal custom post type. And what's great about these templates is it's actually going to recognize all of the custom fields we built as well. If I use this template, it's bringing in the custom field we did for subheading, description, URL, image. It's also bringing in things like the slug and the taxonomy that we created that's assigned to this post type. Now, if we go back into our Figma file here, you'll see we have these different listing types. The only thing I'm going to allow people to submit from the front end of the website are these standard listings. All of these premium listings up here actually go through a separate checkout system, so I really don't need people to be able to fill in all of those details. In the standard listing, all we have is the company name, which is going to link to their deal URL, so we'll need that deal URL field as well, and this description here. So let's go back into our form and we can start making some adjustments. Here for the title, we don't actually want that to say title to the customer. We're just going to change this to company name. Here under the slug, we're just going to let WordPress take care of the slug. It's just going to reference the company name by default or the title of the post, so we can delete that. This listing doesn't have a subheading, so we can get rid of that. It does have a description and a URL, but it doesn't have an image. Now, we don't need people to be able to select the different level of their listing here, so we can go ahead and get rid of that as well, and we'll just default this to the standard listing. So let's go ahead and customize these a bit. For the description, we're just going to put in the word deal description, and we'll make that required. Now, I do want to limit how long they can fill in this description. I've gone ahead and got a character count of that. I just pasted in one of these descriptions to wordcounter.net, and we can see that that's 224 characters. So inside this deal description, I'm going to delete out the help text that comes by default and just do max 224 characters. Now that will show the end user that they have a maximum of this amount, but we actually want to go into the advanced field here, and under maximum characters, we want to change this to 224, so the form won't even accept more than 224 characters. For the URL, all I want to do is make that required, and I might just go ahead and put deal URL 2 just to be a little bit more explicit. And then we have our submit button. We might change this to submit your deal. Go ahead and save that, and now we have all of these different fields set up the way we want to. We'll just put this as deal submission form, and we can go ahead and hit publish. Now, the next thing we want to work on is setting up the actions for this form. So if we go here to this lightning bolt icon, we have our actions. The first one is post management. This is what's actually going to take these form submissions and create a post. So we'll go in here into the settings for that. Because of the templating system, it knew we were pulling in a deal, so it's automatically brought in the post type of deal, which is great. Under status, I don't want to publish these as soon as people submit them. I do want to review them. So I'm going to change the status of these posts to pending. For the author, we can just make me the author of all of these posts. That's fine. It doesn't really matter in this case. Next, we need to map the fields from this form to the post. So we can see here under field mapping, the company name is going to be the title. The slug, we're not going to worry about that, so I'm just going to delete it. The subheadline isn't being used. These all got pulled in because they were a part of that original form, but we can go ahead and get rid of that. The deal description is going to go into our deals description field. The deal URL will go into our deal URL field. And then the image, we don't need that, so we'll go ahead and delete that as well. Lastly, we just need to make sure we map this to the right taxonomy. So we'll scroll down here till we find term mapping. It was going to allow us to use a checkbox field and map that to the appropriate level. We're not going to do that since we're just defaulting to a single term. So I'm just going to change this term to standard, and we'll go ahead and click level standard. So this way, anytime somebody submits one of these deals from the front end, it will automatically map to that standard level. I think that's all we need to do to set up the actions for this post management. So again, I'll hit save on that. And next we need our show message, which is the next action we want to do in this form. Basically, once somebody submits the form, we just want to give them some kind of success message. Now I've already gone out and wrote a success message, so you don't have to see me type. I'll paste that in there. But all we're going to do here is say, thanks, your deal will go live on our page as soon as we've had a chance to review it. This typically takes less than 24 hours. This will just give people some kind of idea of what's going to happen next. Now, I do want to add one more action, and that's to send me an email anytime this form is submitted. I don't want to have to come in and check this periodically to see if there's new deals. I'd like to get an alert when somebody's submitted a new one. So we'll just go in here and add a new action here. I will say email alert. We'll change this action to send email, and we can leave a lot of these at their default. It's going to send this to the blog admin email. However, I'm just going to go ahead and change this to my name, and we'll change this to kyle@theadminbar.com just to make sure. I'm not sure because of this InstaWP install if it had a different email in there by default, so I'll just be explicit here. Now for the form label, I'm just going to say new deal submitted and then a colon. Now instead of the form label showing in the subject, I think I actually want to bring in the company name. So I'll click on this variables button and we see the company name here. If I click on field 16, it's going to go ahead and put that here inside the subject line. So instead of this being a generic subject, it's going to say new deal submitted and then show the company name. As far as the message inside of here, I'm totally fine with this just having all of the information from the form. I don't really need that in the email, but that's fine. However, I do want to give myself a convenient way to come check that deal. So I'm just going to hover over deals here, and under all deals, I'm going to go ahead and copy this link address. In here, I'll say manage post, and I'll highlight that and add a link here and paste in that link from my deals page. This just means whenever I get one of these emails, all I have to do is click this link and it's going to take me right into my deals page so I can start managing those. Again, we'll go ahead and hit save here. And I think it would be wise to go ahead and test out this form. We'll hit publish and we'll just go into pages here and we'll create a new page called form test. I'm just going to add a simple container here. And inside of it, we'll just look for our WS Form Pro block. We'll change this to deal submission form and we'll hit publish. Now we can go ahead and view the front end of this. We can see we have company name, deal description with the help text of max 224 characters and the deal URL. So let's go ahead and fill this out. We'll just say test 1. We'll put in some website IPSM. We'll put a website address in there and we'll go ahead and hit submit your deal. Now it looks like I've made a mistake on this form. It says no to email address specified. So I must have messed something up on this form. We'll go back in here into our edit this and we'll go into our actions, our email alert. So, I just switched around. This should be the email address. You guys were probably yelling at your screen. We'll change this to the kyle@theadminbar.com and change the display name to Kyle. We'll save that, publish it, go back to our pages and view this form test again. We'll do test 2, another website IPSM. We'll do a website URL and we'll submit this deal. So now we can see our success message. Thanks, your deal will go live as soon as we've had a chance to review it. We'll go back on the back end under our deals and we can see this test 2 is actually pending. In fact, this first test came through as well. It just wasn't able to send the email, which is fine. So we can see our first one came through here with the company name, the description and URL, which was all we needed. And we'll double check our other one as well, test 2. It came through with the name, description, and URL as well. So we know that this form is working perfectly. Here inside my inbox, you can see that deal did send me an email for that second test. Here I can see the company name, the description, the URL, and my link to manage the post. So if I click on that, it's going to go ahead and open up this deals page. So if I was reviewing it, I could go ahead and quick edit and change this to published. And now the deal would be live on the page. We'll go ahead and delete these tests out, move those to the trash so we don't have to deal with those. And now we're done setting up our front end submission form and we know that's ready to go. Okay, that's another 40-minute video in the book, so I think we're going to put a pin in it here. Now, it doesn't look like we've actually made a lot of progress. The front end of the website basically has nothing on it, but we've laid a ton of foundation that's going to make building out this website a whole lot easier. Of course, we also spent a lot of time going through everything and explaining things in detail. If this were a real project and I was just up and running, everything we've done in the last 90 minutes or so would have probably took 5 or 10 minutes worth of work. Having a starter site and then going through and just tweaking the things you need to lay the foundation for getting the website built is a really easy process to follow, and once you've done it a few times, it becomes like clockwork. Now we're at the point where the website's actually ready for us to start building it. So in next week's episode, we're going to be jumping in to generate blocks to start laying out this website. This is going to include building all the query loops out and connecting all the dynamic data, as well as setting up global styles through the class system inside Generate Blocks. We'll also go through and input some of the data from some of the listings we have so far, and we're actually going to have a functioning website by this time next week. If you haven't already hit subscribe, go ahead and do that now so you can catch the next episode in this series. And if you learned something new or enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. We'll catch you next week.